Hey, how's it going? How's everybody doing? I'm going to be doing another Tales from the Kitchen video. This one, fuzz in my mouth. Anyway, this one is unfortunately not going to be a happy, fun one, as I found out that last week a guy I used to work with, a really, really great guy I used to work with, unfortunately passed away. I don't know any of the details at this point of what he passed away from, just because he was younger than me. I think by a year, couple of years, I think actually. But which is really sad. This guy was like one in a million, great guy. Um, so it was really really unfortunate to hear about that the world lost a good guy. But anyway, yeah, I just his name was Ralph. He was this big football player guy that was probably about 6'3", 6'4". If I used a clickbait picture that I'm planning on, you'll see compared to me how tall he actually is, how big he actually was. He was he's not standing on anything in the picture, and I'm not sitting down. So that'll if the picture I'm planning on using, if that's the one I use, you'll see what I mean. But yeah, definitely a really good guy. Like I said, I don't know yet what happened. A lot of ums in this video just because I'm just sort of winging a lot of this. But yeah, I didn't want to ask right away because the person that I sort of found out through the grapevine on Facebook was closer to him than I ever was. So I was going to give it some time. But anyway, I'll probably do a brief update on that when I find out. But anyway, just a couple things about Ralph. Talking about the first time I met him. Now I met him. Restaurant I worked at him was Montana's, and I'd worked there for a few years. And he'd worked there before I started working there, and then he quit. And it's shortly after that I was hired, and people were talking about him. This guy Ralph, really nice guy, and whatever different random things they're saying because I don't think it had been that long since he'd left and I had started, so he's still fresh in everybody's mind as a former coworker, and I think they were all still friends with him outside of work anyway. But they're talking about this big hole in the wall. Now on the line, on the sides of the line, like there's like a hallway on either side of the line that led back into the prep area. Well, sort of where one of these little hallways were, there's a poster on the wall. I think it was like how to wash your hands or some generic kitchen poster. And one day someone said, "You want to see something?" I can't remember who it was. And they lifted it up and there's this big hole. Like, who did that? And like, that was Ralph. Like Ralph, like, because I didn't know Ralph yet at the time. And apparently he lost his temper and just put his foot through the wall. And then it was knowing Ralph, he was probably started laughing. He was like, "Oh shit, son of a bitch." Or some bitch, as he used to say, and probably slapped the poster over top of it and said nothing, and just except for the people that were friends with him. Just one of those things that happened before I got there, but I can sort of picture it after I got to know him. But the first time I met him actually was at a staff party, and they hired him back, but I hadn't worked with him yet. So it was a themed party. It was the pimp and hoe party. So basically, you could dress up like a pimp or you can dress up like a hoe. Now, all the guys basically dress like pimps and the girls dress like hoes. Me being me, I got to be different. And it wasn't like I was the first one to ever do this, and I wasn't even the last one at some staff events when we've had these. Later on, we had more of these over the years. But so I come in and I'm wearing like a little black skirt. I mean, I wasn't all clean shaven. I wasn't in like drag per se, but I was wearing like a black skirt and garter belt and red hooker boots, if you can picture this, this blonde wig and a cropped off white tank top with fake boobs, and Tracy had done my makeup and stuff. So in comes Ralph for the first time I ever met him, and I was sort of the acting not kitchen manager, sorry, assistant kitchen manager, the AKM. But I don't know why I did that in quotes, but the AKM. So I'm in the office talking to the kitchen manager. I can't remember his name. What was his name? Anyway, it's not important. Anyway, he was an all right guy too. A little weird. But So Ralph comes in the kitchen. My back is to him, and all he sees is me dressed up in the costume from behind. So he doesn't know. I don't even. He didn't even know I was a dude yet. So he comes walking into the office and goes, "Hey guys!" Like to the manager, whatever his name was, bugging me now. I can't remember. I can picture what he looked like. Mark. His name was Mark. That's it. So he comes, Mark, and I turn around and all he sees is realizes it's a guy with a beard, and he just comes. He looks at me and goes, "Nope, nope, nope." And he just turns around and walks out of the kitchen and into the dining room where everybody was partying, because they used to have them in the restaurant, and they would close early and put paper over the window so you couldn't see inside, and then we'd have some pretty great parties. But then I come out of the kitchen and I go to like to actually introduce myself. He just kind of looks at me and goes, "Yeah, yeah." And I think it was just he saw me from behind, dressed the way I was dressed, and just assumed I was a chick, all dressed like a slut. Comes up behind me and then turns around, and I think he was a little, I don't know, I don't want to say embarrassed, but it was just more like weirded out because it was not at all what he was expecting. So it was just one of the funny memories. And then I think I worked with him a few days later for the first time, and we got along great, and I was making jokes about it, and it was funny. He was always had a really good sense of humor, and I'd only really seen him angry once. There was a guy there. I can't remember his name. I got a lot of other more fun stories I'll get to, but I've only seen him actually angry once. And there was a guy, he would never stock his stations, and Ralph would always be the guy coming in after him. And he was getting angry. He was getting angry every day. It was an ongoing thing. And one day he just snapped on this guy, and this guy was pretty terrified because when Ralph would got mad, that was a side of him I'd never seen before. And I think a lot of people never saw that side of him before, unless you were like really close with him. And he's yelling at this guy. This guy is Italian, but Ralph is dropping N bombs on him and calling him every name, and is just losing it. And the guy's just standing there like white as a sheet. And then Ralph told him to like leave, like get out of my face, get out of my, I don't want to see you kind of thing. And after that though, the guy stocked the fridge. But yeah, that was the only time I've ever actually seen him mad. And you got to think how big he was. He was about he was 6'3", but I'm also thinking he might have been 6'4". He might have been taller because he was a really tall guy, and he was about 300 pounds of football player. He was not like a tall, skinny guy. He wasn't a big, fat guy. Like, he was a football player. He was a big dude, but the gentlest, friendliest, happiest guy for the most part. He was a bouncer at a club called um, Casablanca. That was not too far from where I live now. Remember that? And yeah, but we used to like to drink at work from time to time. And like at the end of the night, at the end of the shift, towards like the last hour or so work, we'd grab a couple. And because I was assistant manager, or at least acting assistant manager, I would get free beers. So I'd always give him some, and I'd have some, and it was really not a big deal. And depending on who was managing, the last hour or so of our shift, I would bring them into the kitchen, and we weren't drinking just pints. We were drinking like Steins, and I'd get refills because back then the managers, even me, who was just like an acting manager, could have unlimited beer. So I'd always get one for him, or sometimes what I'd do is I'd get a pitcher. I'd bring in 2 full pints and then bring the pitcher into the kitchen. And I say, drink the pint quick. And he was one of these guys that could literally take a beer. I know there's a lot of people that could do it. I've never been able to do it, but where he could just take it, just literally pour it into his stomach and just gone. I'm like, I've met a few people that can do that. I'm still always like, how? And then we'd also have our couple cans of beer that got from the store or whatever, at the beer store, liquor store that was nearby. And he would drink half of it. These were big cans, like king cans, like 2 cans in 1 can essentially. And he would just put it way up on the top shelf where only he could see. So it was just kind of funny. And then one time we had a couple beers, and I left the kitchen for some reason. I come back in, and the music was on, and it was Elton John, "I'm Still Standing." And I come in behind him. Now, this is before smartphones, so obviously I didn't record it. If I did, I would have posted it or showed it. It was way before that, but he's just walking, this big black dude, just I'm still standing, and he's just bopping around to it. It was the funniest thing. And he turns around, he sees me, and he's just like, and he points at me. That was his laugh when I'd ever get him to laugh. Like, but we actually hung out quite a bit, like off and on. Like we weren't like best friends or anything, but we hung out a lot. There was a bar called Archie's we used to go to. People at that Montana's. If any of you watch this video, you know the place. And oh, my phone just glitched. I hope that didn't affect the video, but that will suck. But anyway, yeah, there was that. Another time before I met him, actually, there was a story I heard about where a guy back in the day, the staff at Montana's would wear tool belts. That was just the look. That was the look they went for. And they'd have their like notepad and pens and all their gear in there, bottle openers, etc., etc. And some guy was harassing one of the staff and was saying, "Oh, what do you got under that tool belt?" and blah blah. It's being a pig, right? He was kind of drunk. So Ralph was the guy that you would call out. Ralph, you want to go deal with this guy? Plus, he was a bouncer, so he knew how to deal with drunks and idiots anyway. And also, he was a big-ass, giant fucking dude. So he would just walk out, and he's telling the guy, calm down, stop acting, you gotta leave. And apparently the guy said something to him. You think because you're big, I'm scared of you? And then Ralph just went gangster. He was like, what the fuck did you say to me? Or something like that. And apparently the guy just went like, and just left. Like he wasn't sticking around to call any bluffs or anything like that. There was another time I would go to Starbucks sometimes. There's Starbucks next door. And because we closed together a lot, I would often grab him a drink or like like kind of like one of these, the Starbucks version, the Frappuccinos. And he always got the red one, the strawberry one, or it was a pink one. And there was one time these two kids were fighting out, not kids, but like teenagers, early 20s, whatever, fighting out behind Montana's. And then someone came and said, this guy's fighting outside in the back and you better call the cops or whatever. And then I don't know whose manager said, oh, we don't need to call the cops. We got something better. And then Ralph goes out the back door of the restaurant. He's got this thing. Now, bear in mind, it's about this size, but it's pink. He's this big 6'4", 6'3", 6'4" black dude walking out all trying to put on his scariest face. Walks out with this thing in his hand. He's like, what the fuck's going on out here? And the two guys, because I was standing behind him, the two guys just stopped fighting. One guy had him in the headlock, and then they just stopped, and they just went in opposite directions. And then Ralph turns around. He's got this big smile on his face. He's just like, and then walks back into the kitchen. But it was just funny. He just pulls out this pink like drink, and he's just all like. But one of the better interesting times, there used to be a ski trip. They do an annual ski trip at Montana's. So one time I only went to one of them. So we went to the place, whatever. I don't know what the place is called, but a couple funny things about that. There was we had to share beds, or you could sleep on the floor, right? There just wasn't enough beds for everybody. So it's like no big deal, whatever. So somehow I ended up having to share the bed with Ralph, and he crashed out early. He was just tired. He went to bed early. So he's lying there, and he's in the bed, and I'm thinking, oh, I got to go to bed, man, because the next day we're going to go skiing or whatever the fuck. I don't even think I did any skiing because I don't ski, but we were going to go out and have some fun the next day, everybody collectively. So I'm going to bed, and now the bed was like a double bed, and I'm going to go to bed, and there's Ralph passed out, falling asleep because he wasn't feeling that good, so he went right to sleep. I remember I actually lent him earplugs because the music was playing and he was, was keeping him up. But I'm looking at him. So the first night I ended up sleeping on the floor because there was just no way I was getting into this bed with this guy. It'd be like sleeping on a bed with another bed on top of it that you can't sleep on. He was just taking up the whole mattress. So I was like, so I ended up sleeping on the floor that night. Then the next night, where everybody's partying, but there was a town nearby, and people were saying, you want to go to the town, you want to go party? And everybody was just kind of burnt out. I think everybody was hungover from the night before, which I didn't drink the night before, so I was raring to go. I was good to go. Same with Ralph. So we're like, all right, let's go find this town. So we're driving around, and we don't know where we're going. We're just driving. We're looking at signs. So we asked someone. They go, "Oh, it's just up there." So we up the road, whatever, around the corner. So we go up there around the corner, and there's nothing there. So there's some cars parked, and we're just like, "There's nothing here." So I get out and I see someone. I go, "Oh, is there like a town here or something like that? Like some clubs or something I heard about?" And the guy's just like, "Oh yeah, right over there." So I literally walk up and I look around the corner, and it's like this whole street of like bars and clubs, and there's people running around. Everybody, it was just a big party street, like everybody was having a great time. And I come back to the car like, Ralph, you got to see this, man. So